Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Hi, I'm Eden Lane. Thanks for joining us on In Focus. Tonight we visit LOCAL Theater Company in Boulder during their special event, Body of Work. It supports their education outreach program for middle school students. We sit down with both of their special guests during this event. Later we'll meet Miss Prissy, who's known as one of the founders of the Krump dance movement and was featured in David LaChapelle's documentary Rise. But we begin tonight with a Tony Award-winning playwright, Eve Ensler. LOCAL Theater Company develops new American plays as its primary mission, along with the philosophy of community engagement and education. And Body of Work, held at E-Town in Boulder, was more than just a fundraising event. It was an evening of words, dance, and music celebrating the body. Here's my conversation with special guest Eve Ensler. Is this your first visit to Boulder?
No.
No.
I think I've been here a few times.
Yeah. But this is the first time you're coming in support of LOCAL Theater Company.
That's right.
That's not really the reason for your visit, but you sort of added that on to the reason you were coming.
Because I adore Pesha.
So do we.
I adore her.
How did you and Pesha get connected? Because I know she
Pesha,
just directed.
She was my associate director on Emotional Creature, which we began in Berkeley and then moved off Broadway. And she is brilliant and wonderful and compassionate and intricate and layered. And I would do anything for Pesha.
Oh,
yeah.
That sounds like a great description of a lot of the women with whom you work. How do you describe the ecosystem that you seem to have created around your creative body of work?
Oh, I love that. I love that idea of a female ecosystem.
So do I.
Yeah, that's where I want to live. Actually, it's where I do live.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the amazing things that has happened over these years of V-Day and the Vagina Monologues is, the V is it's like a pod, and women gravitate towards it because it is of them. The vagina is of them, and their stories get to be told, and their stories get to be known, and there's safety in telling their stories. And I think the world of V-Day, I was just interviewed by a woman who was talking about how women don't feel safe with other women to tell their stories. And I was like, honey, you got to come to another world.
She knows the wrong women.
Come to V-World, because that's not true here.
Yeah.
And I think what I've been thinking about so much lately is just what you just said, this kind of ecosystem, that all around the world, we have so many extraordinary activists who have been working in this movement now 10, 12, 15 years, who know each other, who have each other's backs. So if anything happens in the world, like this morning there was a storm in Manila, and I just watched the emails. Oh my God, are you all right? Or what can I do? From everywhere in the world. And that's what happens every day now, because there is this environment where women and really good men, and there are a bunch of them, are part of a movement that is about turning pain to power, about the transformation of consciousness, and really ending a world where women are violated and the earth is violated and raped and destroyed, and bringing about a new time.
The connectivity to the earth is more pronounced in your work recently. How did that evolve for you?
Cancer. I think I've always longed for the earth in ways that I longed for my own mother, but felt very separate from them. We just never connected. And when I got cancer, I was kind of mainlined. I was jetted into my body through a 9-hour surgery and woke up for the first time in my body. And that began this very profound transformation process, which I'm calling the cancer conversion process. But through the months of operations and infections and chemo, what happened was that I suddenly found the earth in me and me in the earth. It began with an infection which happened at the same time. It's a BP spill, and suddenly the spill was in my body. The oil, the oil-drenched pelicans washing up in my belly, and everything began to be merged. And I was porous in a way I had never. And suddenly I understood for the first time that my body was not actually a thing, was not a container, was not an entity or a machine, but was actually part of this living, breathing cosmos energy, which is earth, which is body, which is all the same, which is all connected. And that was the most amazing thing. I discovered trees. I literally walk around looking at the trees here today, and I feel it's like I never saw a tree. And I feel that every day. And I think what happened was that when I landed in my body, I landed in the earth. And I think women who are separated from their body from violence, from trauma, or men, we're all separated from ourselves to some degree living in this world. Even if it hasn't been primary trauma, it's secondary trauma, witnessing others, hearing the news, looking at the world. I think we get separated from our bodies, and as a result, we get separated from the earth. So we don't understand that we are one living organism, one living creature, that it's all the same. And we begin to treat everything like it's separate. That the earth is over here and we're over here. And even our bodies are separate from us. We don't treat them as if we're in them. We treat them like we're machines that we're driving to get to the next place.
Rather than being the home that we occupy. You mentioned activists, and we're talking about the earth and being connected to the earth. So those sound like very different things than being an artist. But they're really not, especially in your work. So how do you describe your role in spreading that message and helping other people to tap into those ideas as an artist?
Well, I think when I was younger, it was very hard to be an activist and an artist. I didn't have any idea how I was going to do that, because the functions of art and the making of art is so different than activism.
Yes.
Art comes from a very different place. It's mysterious. It's ambiguous. It's mystical. Oops. It's all that, and activism is very much with an agenda and very clear, but
wanting to affect someone, to cause them to take an action.
And it's didactic to some degree, but actually what I'm learning is the best activism is not that. The best activism actually comes from a much more ambiguous, much more mystical place. So it's not so binary. It's not so right and wrong, yes and no. It comes from dancing. Perfect example. Last year, 1 billion rising. Okay, 1 billion people on the planet dancing in 207 countries. Why was that so effective? Because rather than going out and kind of speaking and giving speeches, people danced. And when they danced, this energy happened. This connection happened. People released their stories. They released their trauma. They came into unity. They formed coalitions.
They stopped being isolated.
They stopped being isolated. They stopped being in their little units of terror and capitalist, individualistic consumption, And I think it was the perfect tool. And now all around the world, people are dancing at protests instead of marching. They're dancing speaking out in unions in the Philippines are now dancing. And I think there's something about that energy that is creative. It inspires people to go further and not to get locked in to, right, wrong, yes, I have this idea, you have that, I'm better than you, but wait, what's the next place we've got to get to?
And we can attack it from more than one angle.
Exactly.
When artists get to talk about their work, it's another way for them to express their point of view. But how does it feel for you as the artist when you see the audience experiencing your work, especially if they've experienced it for the first time, whether it's the Vagina Monologues or your latest work talking about watching that recognition fall over them, even if they never knew you before? How do you...
Oh, there's nothing better. There's nothing better than seeing people laugh at things that you think are funny and realizing they think it's funny too, or cry at things where they're moved, or, I'm going to talk tonight about the theater as a revolutionary tool and why it's about the body, like no other form. Because words and language and meaning literally go into our bodies. I don't know any other form where that happens. And I think as a result of it, there is this kind of transformative, you can have ideas and you can have theories from here until forever. But until you embody it, until it's experienced in your body, you will never change, ever. And the theater, I think the greatest joy in the world is to show up at places where people come up to me and go, hi, my name is, Joanne. I saw your play, changed my life. Saw your play, fell in love with my vagina, loved it ever since. So my husband saw my vagina, loved it ever since. That's the power of theater. Like when you hear things and they go into you and affect a bodily transformation, which is forever. After that happens, it's forever, you know? And I think films are great, but they're not in the room with you. You're not making that experience happen.
You're not participating.
You're not participating. You as an audience make theater happen.
Yeah.
You know, you're the, like it's like a Chinese paper flower, and you're the water, and it expands in you, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
I know your work often tries to empower women in particular, but anyone who's participating in your work, to find a way to connect to their own voice and their own experience. And they don't have to be a writer. They don't have to be a playwright or an actor to do that. So if someone is watching this and he or she hasn't participated in the arts in that way, what would you say to them to help them get started?
I just think the most important thing people can do is to tell the truth and tell your story. I think most people don't tell the truth because they're afraid to tell the truth. And
To themselves.
To themselves. Absolutely. It took me years to tell the truth to myself. And I think most people don't think their story matters, that it doesn't have value, that no one wants to hear it. Is my experience wherever I go in the world, when you listen to someone's story, people usually break down crying because no one's ever taken the time to listen to them. So I think the most important thing you can do is first tell the story to yourself, and then find somebody who you can tell your story to, and break the silence and come out of isolation. Because the minute that happens, your life begins to change and you begin to get free. And I think particularly in this country, there is such a profound loneliness. Do you know that in 2 years, the second disability in America will be depression? The second leading disability will be depression. That is staggering. We're talking about millions and millions of people will be on antidepressants because of loneliness, because of a consumer culture that has made us all feel we're not good enough, we don't have value, we should be doing more, we should be achieving more, we should be adding up to more, and we're all failing. Everyone's failing, except for maybe the 1% who own everything, you know? But
The 1% of the 1%.
The 1% of the 1% who own, and so how do we break out of that isolation? You know, Terence McKenna, who I adore, who is an amazing philosopher who did a lot of psychedelics, but he's actually quite a visionary. He just says culture is not your friend. Unplug from the culture, because the culture is feeding you toxins every day, convincing you that you don't know what you know. You don't feel what you feel. You aren't who you think you are. And how do we help everyone trust what they know? Trust what they see, trust what their instincts tell them, trust the direction they need to move in. That's all that matters now.
I'm so glad you took those steps, because I am among the women who have been impacted by your work, and I'm so grateful that we had a chance to meet you tonight. And I know that they're eager to hear what you have to say, so I'll let you get back to the group.
But I just want to say one thing, that 1 Billion Rising for Justice is coming up February 14th, 2014. And all across the planet this year, like last year, there will be hopefully more than 1 billion people this year rising and dancing at places where they believe they are entitled to justice, whether they're courthouses or schools or military barracks or churches, wherever it is you believe you should have justice, go with your friends, your posse, and rise. Because I think this year something really amazing is going to happen. I think there's going to be a congruency of energy and people coming together like nothing we've ever seen before, and you want to be part of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
You can find more information about her latest book, In the Body of the World, at eveensler.com. Now my conversation with the groundbreaking artist, Miss Prissy.
I love this interview already.
I'm so thrilled that you're here in Boulder. You've been to Colorado before, but
Yes.
you just shared with me it's your first visit to Boulder
Yes.
to support local theater. How did you make this connection? I'm just so happy they did.
Well, Pesha is really, really, really like the reason why I'm here. But before even getting to meet her, I am great friends with her brother, Dove, who is married to the executive producer of my company, Jessica Koslow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew?
And the reason all of our viewers, especially our younger viewers, are going to be thrilled to meet you on this interview is because we know you from a little film called Rise.
Yeah.
Just some little documentary that had just a tiny little impact.
It's just a little tiny little
impact.
Just a little grenade effect. That's all.
Did you have a sense before that happened to you how connected your tentacles would reach out into the arts community the way it has?
I mean, honestly, like, I don't think that I really understood what was going on when it was being filmed. Like, I was just like, who is this person who is being so invasive just in my life, wanting
David
to be,
LaChapelle.
yeah, like everywhere where I'm at. And then what a lot of people don't know is when Rise was being filmed, I was already working in Hollywood. So immediately I had like a flag up, like, hold up, you're not coming in the hood filming us for free. What's going on?
That's right.
You know?
Were you a choreographer, a dancer,
I was just
an
dancing.
actor? You were just dancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was at the time on the road with Snoop Dogg and The Game, on tour with them. And when I had a break, I came home to him having cameras in my neighborhood, you know, and I didn't realize that what he would document would impact so many lives. Like, I didn't realize it until he screened our movie at the Magic Johnson Theater in our neighborhood, and I saw the billboard. Like, I immediately like broke down into tears because it was like all my years of training in ballet and tap and jazz, none of that got me to the pinnacle of success that I was at then. Like, what got me there was street dance.
And because it's raw, it's emotional, it's rugged,
Yeah.
and it's powerful.
Oh.
Not just the movement.
Yeah, the
but
message. The message. People look at street dancers and automatically think like, oh, they're up to no good, and oh, they.
Do you think that's still true?
I definitely still think that's true.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. People look at a ballerina totally different than the way that they look at a b-boy.
Mm-hmm.
Because they think, oh, ballet is the only thing that has grace and poise. That's not true. Like, and because I can say that with so much confidence because I am a ballerina, you know, and I saw that street dance gave me a grace that lyrical and modern and jazz could not.
Well, it's allowed you to open up your own facility in a different way.
Absolutely.
It's not just a codified set of movements.
Absolutely.
You were inventing it.
Yeah.
What is that like?
As human beings, we invent things all the time. It's about being noticed for your invention. And I think that was what was most captivating about my climb. You know, it was like, wow, here I am just creating moves with my friends, you know, and now this has become a global phenomenon. Like, it's crazy. Like, every continent that I have touched, there are Krumpers.
Yes,
It's
there
nuts. It's like, oh, they don't even speak English. They're Miss Prissy, come. It's just like, whoa, like, I was just doing this in my backyard in South Central, and here I am in South Africa, and you're crumping.
So when you see that reach that has had, how does that inform or fuel the work that you're doing now?
Well, the work that I'm doing now is basically about touching lives with dance, you know, and not just touching lives with dance, but touching lives with your story. Because a lot of dancers, they get lost in the idea of dancing for artists. So, oh, I danced for this person and that. And it's just like, that's not what makes you great. What makes you great is using your art to touch lives. And that's where I'm at now. You know, in my younger years when I was dancing with Madonna and all these artists, I was so gassed. Like,
I have to
oh,
wait.
this
I
is
have
great.
to pick that up here. The little name that you put.
The name drop.
Yes, I'm going
Sorry.
to pick that up for you so I didn't
No,
get
but
lost.
no, like, honestly, like, I would go crazy. Like, yeah, I used to dance, you know, and then it's
But
like,
that's important though. That you were able to continue to.
oh, absolutely.
To work
because
in
some
your
some
own
dancers, they get lost in that cycle of continuing to dance for someone. They're not dancing for themselves. And I think that my journey through life now is about dancing for me and dancing to spread the message that I have inside of me. You know, it's not about learning choreography. It's not about perfecting these moves that these other choreographers are teaching me. It's about me freestyling and giving you exactly what's on my heart and what's on my mind.
And that brings you very nicely to the programs that you and Eve Ensler are here to support with local theater.
Yeah.
I mean, to take Krump dancing that you and your friends invented,
Yeah.
and now you're reaching South Africa,
Yeah.
all over the world, and a small theater company in their education program in Boulder, Colorado.
It's a beautiful thing, because a lot of dancers don't realize that more than just about moving your body, you have to be able to speak about what you're doing. You know, you have to be able to relay dance to those people that don't have the grace and the poise to move, you know?
If someone isn't lucky enough to be here this weekend and
I didn't do it.
and meet you and see the work that you're doing here, how can they take what they see when they look at the work you've done and apply it in their own lives until they have a chance to come to some kind of workshop? What's your advice to young women who are looking at you saying, that's exactly the kind of thing I want to do?
Well, here's a message to people in general. Life is about being artistically expressive, and a lot of people get lost in just trying to survive, you know? People forget that life is about thriving. People forget that life is about inhaling and exhaling. And when you understand that about yourself, you move through this universe just with so much grace and so much poise, because you're understanding that life is about energy. Life is about the constant movement of energy, you know? And when I'm dancing, that's all it's about. It's not about me perfecting these moves. It's about having my energy move you so bad that it makes some energy build in you so you can apply that to the craft that you're excelling in it right now, you know?
I think that's a perfect way to put it. And I think that they'll actually understand that. And you talked about the poise and the grace. There's also so much power in the work you're doing. And I'm so delighted that we had a chance to steal you away from this event just to talk to you for a moment.
I'm just delighted to be here. I never thought that, you know, I'm growing up in South Central, one of the most craziest places in Southern California. You know, there are girls in my neighborhood that don't even get past a 2-mile radius of where they're growing up ever, you know? And to just know that God has been so good to me, to where I had a great mom and dad who pushed me really hard, you know, regardless of the things that were going on in my neighborhood. They had me like a horse with shutters, don't even look at it. Steadfast and keep your eye on the dream. And I swear, I've never done anything else in life but dance. And some of my friends are like, oh, that must be boring. It's how? I'm living. I'm thriving. I'm not aging because I'm doing what I want. I'm doing what I want. It's only when society makes you do things that you don't want to do is when you start to look like an old bat. That's when you look old. But when you're doing exactly what you want to do, you don't care about waking up at 6:30. You don't care about going to sleep at 3:30 because you're doing what the universe has called you to do. And I feel like it's no coincidence that I've never had a job. My job has always been to dance and tell my story. And just hopefully my story will rub off on somebody so they can be inspired to be an inspiration to someone else.
It does. I'm so delighted to meet you. Thank you for sneaking out of there to come and talk to us today.
No problem.
You can find more information about Miss Prissy's work at her webpage, queenofkrump.com. Now we have a highlight from a short documentary by Tim Kaminsky of E47 Films about local theater companies' education programs.
So educational theater is sort of a big grand term for the thing I probably care about most.
The thing that's kind of amazing about children is their openness.
Kids who find their voice and that people care about hearing their voice.
Finally, there's brain research on how using role play in the classroom actually helps children not only pre-literacy skills, which we've known for years because it's repetition, there's revisiting characters. Kids actually learn to self-monitor. They learn self-control. They learn how to self-reflect, which are the fundamentals to learning to study.
So while that's not a full answer, it might explain why even on our darkest days, almost annoyed days, our most stressful
A couple things that stayed with me watching Casey Middle School's presentation of Our Town Debunking the Boulder Myth is how incredibly intelligent and creative the students were.
Last spring, we spent 12 weeks in the classroom. We used the classic play, Our Town, to sort of launch the kids into thinking about Boulder. They wrote their play. It was about 28 minutes long.
And then taking them to New York.
Taking the kids to New York far exceeded my expectations. They performed at the Youth Can Conference, which is a 100% student-run conference. They performed to over 200 kids from all over the world.
And we were actually able to have them experience a Broadway show.
They saw Cinderella, which we were sort of concerned about because we thought, oh, it might be too young for them. They're 8th graders, they're gonna think it's really uncool. And in fact, they were fascinated by things like Cinderella's dress disappearing when she went from being Cinderella back to the peasant. And they just got all of the sophisticated nuance of seeing a Broadway musical.
You can find information about local theater companies' education programs and their upcoming new play festival, Local Lab, on their webpage, localtheatercompany.org. Last Monday, local actress and producer Abby Applebose and her production company held a fundraising event for the Denver Actors Fund at Lanny's Clock Tower Cabaret. They invited several members of the theater community to put on a show and raise money for this worthy cause, and they were able to successfully raise more than $2,000 on that single night. A wonderful evening of friends and fantastic performances. And you can find more information by searching Facebook for Denver Actors Fund.
Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Snugglebug.